February 3rd, 1944, 11:47 p.m. Bletchley Park, Buckinghamshire, England. The frost crunches under Joan Clarke's leather shoes as she hurries across the darkened courtyard toward Hut 8. Her breath forms small clouds in the bitter air, illuminated momentarily by the thin slice of moon overhead. Behind her, the Victorian mansion looms like a silent sentinel, its windows blacked out against German reconnaissance planes that might be prowling the night sky. She clutches a thermos of tea and a worn leather satchel containing her notes from yesterday's shift. Inside Hut 8, the scene strikes you immediately. 32 people crowd around wooden tables covered in paper, pencils, and German naval intercepts. The air hangs thick with cigarette smoke and the acrid smell of overworked electrical equipment. A Wren operator named Sarah Buckland sits hunched over a typewriter, transcribing the day's intercepted messages with mechanical precision. Her fingers fly across the keys, click, clack, clack, creating a rhythm that never stops, even as one shift bleeds into the next. "Anything promising from the afternoon batch?" Joan asks, approaching the senior cryptanalyst, Hugh Alexander. He's been here since 4 p.m., and his shirt collar bears the telltale wrinkles of a man who hasn't left his desk in 7 hours. Alexander doesn't look up. His pencil scratches across a sheet filled with 5-letter groups: FGHTQ, MPLXZ, BCVNM. "3 messages from the Norway sector," he mutters. "Same settings we've been chasing since Tuesday. The bombs have been running continuously, but we're still missing something." You need to understand what's happening here. This isn't just an office. Bletchley Park operates like a factory, an intelligence factory, and the product is time. Every message the Germans transmit has a shelf life of exactly 24 hours. After that, the intelligence becomes stale, worthless. The convoy mentioned in today's decrypt will have changed course by tomorrow. The U-boat position plotted this morning will be 300 miles away by nightfall, so the codebreakers work in relentless 8-hour shifts, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 4 p.m. to midnight, midnight to 8 a.m. The war never sleeps, and neither does Bletchley Park. At 11:59 p.m., the midnight shift begins filtering in. 23 new faces replace the exhausted evening crew. A young mathematician named Peter Hilton takes his position at Joan's table, nodding a silent greeting. He's 21 years old, fresh from Oxford, and his mind can hold 36 different cipher variables simultaneously. The evening shift passes their work forward. Half-solved cribs, potential wheel settings, frequency analyses still in progress. Nothing stops, nothing resets. Commander Edward Travis, the operational head of Bletchley Park, stands in the doorway of Hut 8, observing the transition with military precision. He's holding a clipboard with tonight's priority list: Atlantic convoy routes, German naval dispositions in the North Sea, suspected U-boat supply schedules. His weathered face shows the strain of coordinating 8,000 people across this sprawling estate. Mathematicians, linguists, engineers, Wren operators, maintenance staff, security personnel, all synchronized like gears in a vast machine. The Admiralty is waiting on the 0400 report, Travis announces to the room. His voice cuts through the ambient noise like a knife. Every message decoded before breakfast potentially saves a merchant ship in the Atlantic. Remember that. The weight of his words settles over the midnight crew like a physical presence. Out there right now, convoys are crossing the North Atlantic in darkness. Hundreds of merchant vessels carrying food, fuel, tanks, ammunition, everything needed to keep Britain fighting, and hunting those convoys are wolf packs of German submarines, coordinated by encrypted radio messages that pass through the air like invisible threats. The people in this room are the only thing standing between those submarines and their targets. Joan pulls out the first intercept from tonight's batch. A message transmitted at 8:14 p.m. by a U-boat somewhere in the Bay of Biscay. It's 156 five-letter groups, encoded using the German Navy's four-rotor Enigma machine, the most complex cipher device in existence. She copies the message onto a crib sheet, searching for recognizable patterns. The work is painstaking, methodical. Every letter matters. One mistake, and the entire message becomes gibberish. Peter Hilton works beside her, analyzing frequency distributions. The German language has predictable patterns. Certain letters appear more often than others. Certain combinations never occur. These patterns leak through even the most sophisticated encryption, like water through microscopic cracks. You learn to see them after months of practice, to feel them in your bones. Peter's pencil moves across the page in quick, precise strokes, noting each anomaly, each potential weakness in the cipher. At 12:34 a.m., Joan identifies a promising crib. The message begins with a standard German naval format. Weather report followed by position coordinates. She knows this because yesterday's decrypted messages used the same format. If she's right, the first 20 letters of this intercept correspond to the German phrase Wetterbericht von Standort, weather report from position. That's enough to run a bomber test. She fills out a purple requisition slip and hands it to runner Carol Matthews, a 19-year-old volunteer who sprints between huts carrying urgent paperwork. Carol takes the slip and dashes into the freezing night, her footsteps echoing across the courtyard as she races toward Hut 11, the bomb room. The machine heart, 12:41 a.m. Hut 11 vibrates with mechanical violence. 12 bomb machines line the walls like bronze gods demanding worship. Each machine stands 7 feet tall, 3 feet deep, weighing over a ton. Inside each one, 36 rotating drums spin in synchronized patterns, testing thousands of potential Enigma settings per minute. The noise is overwhelming, a grinding, clicking, chattering symphony of electrical contacts, making and breaking circuits at speeds that blur the boundary between machine and magic. Wren operator Margaret Rock receives Joan's purple slip and examines the crib. Wetterbericht von Standort, matched against FGHTQ MPLXZ BCVNM QPLRT YXCNM. She programs bomber number 7 with these parameters, setting the rotor positions and plug board configurations. Her hands move with practiced efficiency, born from thousands of previous runs. One mistake in programming means 20 minutes of wasted time and potentially lives lost at sea. At 12:44 a.m., she throws the activation switch. Bomb number 7 roars to life. The drums begin spinning, each one containing 26 electrical contacts representing the 26 letters of the alphabet. As they rotate, they test different Enigma rotor positions against Joan's crib. The machine isn't thinking, not in any human sense, but it's searching with mechanical precision through 159 quintillion possible Enigma settings, eliminating impossible combinations at a rate no human could match. Margaret stands at attention beside the machine, watching for the moment it stops. That's her entire job for the next 20 minutes. Watch and wait. If the bomb stops, it means it's found a potential match. She must immediately record the rotor positions, reset the machine, and relay the results to Hut 8. If the bomb runs for the full 20 minutes without stopping, the crib was wrong. Joan will have to try again with a different guess. Behind Margaret, 11 other bombs run simultaneously on different cribs from different messages. The bomb room operates at maximum capacity around the clock. Each machine processes one crib at a time, which means the entire facility can test 12 cribs simultaneously. But Bletchley Park intercepts hundreds of messages daily. The backlog grows faster than the machines can process it. It's a race between mechanical precision and German operational tempo, and the British are barely keeping pace. At 1:03 a.m., Bombay number 7 suddenly stops. The silence hits like a thunderclap. Margaret's heart hammers as she rushes forward and checks the drum positions. Rotor Y at position 14, rotor 2 at position 7, rotor 3 at position 22, rotor 4 at position 3. She scribbles these numbers onto a pink slip with trembling hands and sprints out of Hut 11. The cold air slaps her face as she runs across the courtyard. Her Wren uniform provides little protection against the February freeze, but she doesn't slow down. Every second counts. She burst through the door of Hut 8 at 1:06 a.m. and thrust the pink slip into Joan Clarke's hands. Joan attacks the message immediately using the bomb's suggested settings. She sets up a captured German Enigma machine, one of dozens at Bletchley Park, obtained through various intelligence operations, and configures it with the rotor positions from the pink slip. Then she begins typing the intercepted 5-letter groups: FGHTQ, MPLXZ, BCVNM. The Enigma machine transforms these letters into German text. Wetterbericht wo nestan dort. She's done it. The crib was correct. The message begins with weather report from position, exactly as predicted. But weather reports are just the beginning. Joan continues decoding, and the message reveals something far more valuable. U-boat U-267, reporting its current position in grid square BE4291, approximately 300 miles west of Brest, France. The submarine is low on fuel and requests permission to return to base. The message includes its intended route, surface times for recharging batteries, and estimated arrival at port. This intelligence is pure gold. Within 30 minutes, Joan's decoded message reaches the Admiralty in London via encrypted teleprinter. Within 2 hours, RAF Coastal Command dispatches a long-range Liberator bomber to patrol the area. At 6:47 a.m., the Liberator spots U-267 running on the surface, exactly where the decoded message predicted it would be. The submarine crash dives, but it's too late. Depth charges bracket the U-boat, and it surfaces again, mortally wounded. The crew abandons ship. 42 German sailors survive and become prisoners of war. Their submarine sinks in 800 feet of water, one less threat to Allied convoys. None of this would have happened without Joan Clarke working through the night, without Margaret Rock standing beside a bomb machine for 20 minutes, without the midnight shift at Bletchley Park grinding through encrypted messages while the rest of England sleeps. The dawn assault, 6:47 a.m., February 4th, 1944. The dawn shift arrives in waves. The sun hasn't risen yet, but Bletchley Park blazes with artificial light pouring from every hut. The night shift looks haggard, faces pale from fluorescent lighting and too much coffee, but they can't leave until the morning shift is fully briefed. The transition must be seamless, like a relay race where dropping the baton means people die. In Hut 8, Hugh Alexander walks the incoming day shift through the night's achievements. 7 messages decoded, 3 U-boat positions identified, 1 submarine successfully attacked. He points to the priority list for today. More Atlantic convoy intelligence, suspected German mine-laying operations in the English Channel, possible surface radar activity near the Azores. The war doesn't pause for shift changes. Stuart Milner Barry takes command of the day shift. Before the war, he was a chess champion competing in international tournaments across Europe. Now he applies that same strategic thinking to breaking German codes. He sees patterns where others see chaos, finds weaknesses in encryption schemes that seem impenetrable. His reputation at Bletchley Park is legendary. He once cracked a 4-rotor Enigma message in 43 minutes using nothing but frequency analysis and intuition. At 7:12 a.m., a motorcycle courier arrives from the RAF listening station at Chicksands with a leather pouch containing overnight intercepts. 23 new German naval messages, each one a puzzle waiting to be solved. Stuart distributes them among his team. Experienced cryptanalysts get the difficult messages, newer staff handle the routine traffic. One message immediately catches his attention. It's short, only 68 letter groups, but the header indicates most secret classification. The German discriminant shows it originated from U-boat command headquarters in Paris, addressed to all Atlantic submarine commanders. Messages from headquarters usually contain operational orders affecting multiple submarines simultaneously. This could be a Wolfpack coordination order, a tactical directive, or intelligence about Allied convoy movements. Stuart assigns the message to himself and mathematician Gordon Welchman. They work together, analyzing the frequency distribution and searching for potential cribs. The message is too short for standard weather report formats, which suggests it might be purely tactical. They try several cribs: Angriff of Konvoi, attack convoy, neue Befehle, new orders, Aufklärung, reconnaissance. Nothing works. At 7:34 a.m., they send the message to the bomb room for a brute force search. No crib, just pure mechanical testing of every possible setting. This type of run takes longer, sometimes up to 40 minutes, but it's their only option when the crib approach fails. While waiting for the bomb results, Stewart moves to the next priority message. It's a long transmission, 241 letter groups from a U-boat in the North Atlantic. Long messages are valuable because they provide more material for frequency analysis and increase the chances of identifying patterns. He and Gordon divide the message into sections and begin searching for cribs in parallel. At 8:02 a.m., the bomb room sends back results on the short headquarters message. The settings work. Stewart decodes it letter by letter, and his blood runs cold as the German text emerges. All submarines in grid squares BD through BH are to maintain radio silence for 72 hours, beginning 000 hours 5 February. Operation Donnerkeil proceeds as planned. Operation Donnerkeil, Thunderbolt. Stewart has never seen this code word before, which means it's a new German operation. And 72 hours of radio silence means the submarines are preparing for something major, probably a coordinated attack on a high-value convoy. Radio silence prevents the British from tracking submarine movements through direction finding, but it also means Bletchley Park won't have intercepts to decode. The Germans are deliberately going dark. This intelligence reaches the Admiralty within 15 minutes. Every Allied convoy in the North Atlantic receives immediate warnings. Naval escorts go to maximum alert. Long-range patrol aircraft increase their surveillance coverage. The British don't know exactly what Operation Donnerkeil entails, but they know enough to prepare defences. The continuous battle, 10:23 a.m. The morning shift settles into rhythm. In Hut 6, the Army and Air Force Enigma section operates with the same intensity as the naval unit. Here, the focus shifts from submarine warfare to land battles and air operations. Mavis Beatty, a brilliant linguist who speaks Italian, German and French fluently, works on Italian naval codes while monitoring German Air Force traffic. The Luftwaffe uses a 3-rotor Enigma, less complex than the Navy's 4-rotor version, but the volume is staggering. Hundreds of messages per day, each one containing potential intelligence about bomber formations, fighter deployments, supply movements, troop concentrations. At 10:45 a.m., a priority intercept arrives with Luftwaffe discriminants, indicating it originated from a reconnaissance squadron operating over southern England. Reconnaissance reports are critical because they reveal what the Germans know about Allied activities. If the Luftwaffe has spotted preparations for a major operation like the upcoming D-Day invasion, the intelligence could compromise months of planning. Mavis receives the message and immediately recognizes the format. She's seen thousands of Luftwaffe reconnaissance reports, and they all follow standard patterns. The message begins with aircraft identification, followed by grid coordinates, altitude, weather conditions, and observed enemy activity. She writes out a crib based on this format and sends it to the bomb room. While waiting for results, she works on 3 other messages simultaneously. This is normal at Bletchley Park. Cryptanalysts rarely focus on a single message. They juggle multiple intercepts, rotating through them as bomb bay results arrive, as new cribs are tested, as frequency analyses reveal patterns. The mental load is enormous, requiring the ability to hold multiple cipher problems in your mind simultaneously without mixing them up. At 11:09 a.m., the bomb room confirms Mavis's crib. She decodes the reconnaissance message, and her suspicions are confirmed. The German pilot reported seeing increased bomber activity at RAF bases in eastern England. However, and this is critical, the pilot's report is vague about specific targets. The Germans know something is building, but they don't know what or when. This intelligence flows to RAF Bomber Command, confirming that German reconnaissance is monitoring British bomber preparations. But the decoded message also reveals a weakness. The Luftwaffe reconnaissance flights are scheduled and predictable. Armed with this information, the RAF can plan their major operations during gaps in German surveillance coverage. These are the invisible victories of Bletchley Park. Nobody fires shots. Nobody plants bombs. Yet the intelligence gathered here shapes every major operation of the war. Convoy routes are adjusted based on decoded U-boat positions. Bomber raids are timed to avoid German night fighter concentrations. Supply convoys are diverted around minefields identified through decoded German naval messages. The war is being won through information, decoded one message at a time by people working 8-hour shifts in wooden huts. The afternoon pressure, 2:34 p.m. The afternoon shift takes control. In Block D, Alan Turing reviews the morning's performance metrics with mathematician Max Newman. The bombs decoded 43 messages between midnight and noon, a respectable number, but still insufficient given the volume of intercepts pouring in from listening stations across Britain. The backlog currently stands at 87 undecoded messages, and that number grows hourly. "We need more machines," Newman says, studying the production schedule. Travis approved funding for 6 additional bombs last month, but they won't arrive until April. Until then, we're operating at maximum capacity with no margin for surges. Turing nods absently. His mind races through potential optimizations. What if they could predict the most likely Enigma settings before running the bombs? The Germans change settings daily, but they follow patterns. Certain rotor combinations appear more frequently than others. Certain plugboard configurations are favored by specific German operators. If Bletchley Park could identify these patterns and prioritize the most probable settings, they could potentially cut bomber run times by 30%. But pattern analysis requires data, massive amounts of data, and the computational power to analyze it. Turing's thoughts drift to Colossus, the revolutionary electronic computer being developed in Block H. Colossus isn't designed for Enigma. It targets the even more complex Lorenz cipher used by German High Command. But the principles are similar. Use machines to process information faster than human minds can manage. At 3:15 p.m., a crisis erupts in Hut 8. The Germans have changed their naval Enigma settings 12 hours early, an unprecedented deviation from standard procedure. Every message transmitted after 3 p.m. uses new rotor positions that Bletchley Park hasn't cracked yet. The morning's intelligence suddenly becomes useless for decoding the afternoon traffic. Hugh Alexander, now back on shift after a brief rest, makes an immediate decision: divert all available bombs to cracking the new settings. Every other cryptographic task is suspended. The entire focus of Bletchley Park's naval section concentrates on a single objective: break the new settings before nightfall. The pressure is immense. Out in the Atlantic, convoys are moving into position. U-boats are maneuvering according to orders transmitted in the new cipher. Every hour that Bletchley Park remains blind to German naval communications increases the risk of surprise attacks. The Admiralty needs intelligence by 8 p.m. at the latest to route tonight's convoy movement safely. Teams of cryptanalysts attack the problem from multiple angles. Joan Clarke analyzes the first message transmitted under the new settings, searching for cribs. Peter Hilton performs frequency analysis, looking for statistical anomalies. Welchman examines German operational patterns, trying to predict what the early setting change might indicate about upcoming naval operations. At 4:47 p.m., Joan identifies a potential crib. One of the new intercepts appears to be a routine weather report, the most common message type in German naval traffic. She writes out the standard weather report format in German and submits it to the bomb room as a crib. 18 minutes later, bomb number 3 stops. The settings work. Bletchley Park is back in the game. The decoded messages reveal why the Germans changed settings early. They're implementing new security procedures following a suspected British intelligence leak. German Naval Command doesn't know that Enigma is broken. They suspect a spy in their organization or possibly compromised physical documents. The early setting change is a test to see if British convoy movements suddenly become less predictable. This revelation creates a meta-intelligence problem. If the British react too quickly to the decoded intelligence, they'll confirm German suspicions about a leak. But if they don't react, submarines will attack convoys successfully. The Admiralty must walk a razor's edge, using Bletchley Park intelligence without making it obvious that they have intelligence. The deadline race, 9:21 p.m., February 4th, 1944. The evening shift grinds toward midnight. Joan Clarke has been at her desk for 13 consecutive hours, covering gaps left by 2 operators who called in sick. Her vision blurs slightly as she stares at another intercept: U-boat traffic from the Mediterranean theater. The Mediterranean U-boats operate independently from Atlantic submarines and use different Enigma settings, which means every theater requires separate cryptanalysis efforts. The clock on the wall shows 9:21 p.m. In 99 minutes, the Germans will change their Enigma settings again for the new day. At midnight, Berlin time, 11 p.m. British time, every rotor position will reset, every plugboard configuration will change, and Bletchley Park's hard-won access to German naval communications will evaporate. Tomorrow, they'll start from zero again, breaking new settings through cribs and bomb runs, while German submarines operate freely for those critical morning hours when Bletchley Park is blind. 6 messages remain undecoded from today's batch. 6 pieces of intelligence that could reveal U-boat positions, convoy threats, minefield locations, supply ship routes. In 99 minutes, those messages become exponentially harder to crack because the code breakers will lose the settings they've already broken. Hugh Alexander makes the call: prioritize the longest message first. It's a 247-letter group transmission from U-boat command, likely containing multiple operational details. If they can crack one long message, they might generate cribs for the shorter ones, using common phrases and format similarities. The message goes to the bomber room at 9:28 p.m. Stuart Milner Barry programs the crib personally, understanding the time pressure. The bomb runs for 18 agonizing minutes, while the entire cryptography section waits. At 9:46 p.m., the bomb stops. The settings work. Alexander and Joan attack the message simultaneously, splitting it into sections and decoding in parallel. The German text emerges phrase by phrase. Reassignment orders for Wolfpack Eisenhardt, effective tomorrow at 600 hours. 3 submarines redirected from convoy route HX-284 to the southern Iceland patrol area. New grid square assignments, fuel status reports, torpedo inventory. This is exactly the intelligence the Admiralty needs. By 10:08 p.m., the decoded message reaches London. Convoy HX-284 receives new routing instructions, steering clear of the waiting submarines. The 3 U-boats arrive at their new patrol area and find empty ocean. They waste fuel searching for targets that never appear, eventually returning to port with unused torpedoes and demoralized crews. The shorter messages crack quickly now, using cribs derived from the long message. Standard German naval phrases: grid square, proceed to, report position, unlock the remaining intercepts like keys turning in locks. By 10:57 p.m., all 6 messages are decoded, translated and transmitted to operational commanders. At 11:00 p.m. exactly, the Enigma settings change. Today's intelligence operation is complete. Tomorrow's begins immediately. The unseen victory. The full scope of Bletchley Park's operation reveals itself only when you step back and observe the entire machine in motion across days, weeks, months. By mid-1944, 8,000 people work at this sprawling estate, divided across 3 8-hour shifts, covering every minute of every day. Mathematicians like Alan Turing and Joan Clarke provide the intellectual firepower, developing new cryptanalytic techniques and recognizing patterns in seemingly random letter sequences. Linguists who speak German, Italian, Japanese, and 17 other languages translate decoded messages and identify contextual meanings that pure mathematics might miss. Engineers maintain the bombies, repair broken components, and build new machines as production schedules permit. Wren operators run the equipment with mechanical precision, understanding that a single programming error wastes precious time. Security personnel guard the perimeter, ensuring that no unauthorized person approaches the huts and no documents leave the compound. Kitchen staff prepare meals for workers who can't leave their posts. Drivers shuttle urgent documents to London in blacked-out vehicles. Each person is a gear in a vast mechanism designed for one purpose: to decode German military communications faster than the Germans believe possible. The numbers tell a story that will remain classified for 30 years after the war ends. Between 1940 and 1945, Bletchley Park decodes approximately 3,000 messages per day at peak operation. That's 2 messages every minute, around the clock, for 5 years. The intelligence, codenamed Ultra, shortens the war in Europe by an estimated 2 years, according to post-war analysis by military historians. 2 years. That means hundreds of thousands of lives saved on both sides, countless cities spared from destruction, immeasurable human suffering prevented. But the human cost here is measured differently than on battlefields. Nobody at Bletchley Park fires a weapon or charges a beach or calls in artillery strikes. They fight with pencils and paper, with mathematics and logic, with exhaustion and determination. Joan Clarke works 6-day weeks for years, often covering extra shifts when colleagues fall ill or when urgent intelligence demands immediate attention. She earns $2 per week less than male colleagues doing identical work, yet never complains, understanding that personal grievances are meaningless compared to the stakes of the war. Mavis Beatty decodes messages while 7 months pregnant, working until the day before she gives birth, then returning to her post 3 weeks later, because Bletchley Park desperately needs experienced cryptanalysts. Alan Turing conceives computational theories that will lay the foundation for modern computers, while simultaneously bearing the weight of knowing that every unsolved message might represent ships sinking in the Atlantic, soldiers dying in France, civilians killed in bombing raids. The psychological toll is invisible but profound. Cryptanalysts develop severe anxiety, knowing that their mistakes have consequences measured in human lives. Bomb operators suffer from nightmares about missed signals and programming errors. Security personnel struggle with the burden of secrets they can never share with families or friends. Everyone at Bletchley Park lives in a state of perpetual tension, knowing their work matters desperately, but forbidden from ever discussing it. After the war ends in 1945, the British government orders total secrecy about Bletchley Park's operations. The Official Secrets Act seals every achievement behind walls of classification that won't lift for 3 decades. The bombs are destroyed or repurposed, their revolutionary designs hidden from public knowledge. Thousands of personnel return to civilian life, carrying secrets they can never reveal. Joan Clarke becomes a teacher in Scotland, awarded an MBE for unspecified wartime services, never able to explain to her students why she received it. Mavis Beatty raises her children in suburban London, her extraordinary cryptographic achievements unknown even to her family. Alan Turing faces persecution for his sexuality, and dies in 1954 from cyanide poisoning, officially ruled suicide. His wartime contributions still classified, his genius unrecognized by the public that benefited from it. The injustice of this silence cuts deep. While bomber pilots and infantry soldiers receive medals and parades, the code breakers of Bletchley Park receive nothing but enforced anonymity. Their victory is written in shadows, their achievements erased from history books, their sacrifices forgotten by a grateful nation that doesn't know they exist. But on this February night in 1944, none of that matters yet. What matters is the next message, the next crib, the next Bombay run. Because somewhere in the Atlantic, a convoy is steaming through darkness, unaware that a submarine wolf pack is moving into position. And somewhere in Hut 8, a codebreaker is about to decode the message that will save those ships. The lights at Bletchley Park never go out, the shifts never stop changing, the bombs never stop spinning. This is the price of intelligence. Constant vigilance, relentless effort, and the knowledge that every decoded message might be the difference between life and death for someone you'll never meet. The factory runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. No holidays, no breaks, no mercy, because the Germans never stop transmitting and the British never stop listening. In this war of invisible ink and encrypted words, Bletchley Park is Britain's secret weapon, 8,000 people working in perfect synchronization to break codes, save lives, and win a war that most of them will never be allowed to discuss. And they do it all before breakfast, while the rest of England sleeps, while the convoys sail through darkness, while history turns on decisions made by cryptanalysts hunched over wooden tables in unheated huts, racing against midnight deadlines that reset every single day.